Hi everyone, it's Ash from FPL Hints. At the time of recording, the 24-25 Premier League fixtures have just been released. Now, your favourite FPL content creators are either on holiday or they're playing Euro Fantasy, and I'm doing neither of those things. So I thought, you know what? Why not give a proper go for my first FPL draft of this pre-season? Now, before we get into it, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. And also, for those that have been following my videos during preseason, you'll know that I've sort of cheated and I've already got like a preseason draft that I created over on FPL.team. And this was based on their initial pricing. So this team is within budget on the predicted pricing, as you can see right there. And what I'm now going to do is, now knowing what those fixtures are, is basically just make some changes to my team. So once again, a shout out to FPL.team, who are super quick in updating their planner with these fixtures. So we'll quickly review these fixtures, how this changes my decision making, and we'll then get into making some tweaks. And I'll also share with you what their template is at the time of recording as well. But that template is a bit misleading because it doesn't factor in 100 million budget, and it is over, but it gives you an indication on who the trending players are. And I can also validate with my own team to see where it sits in that as well. So fixtures first and foremost, we can see starting off with Arsenal at the top. They've got a reasonable opening fixture at the Emirates. Only 2 red block fixtures in the first 8. Let's assume that the bulk of us are going to use our wildcard by game week 8. Surely having at least 2 Arsenal players makes sense in your FPL teams. And then on to Aston Villa, who are now a Champions League team for the 24-25 season. Interestingly enough, only 2 red block fixtures in the first 8. Of course, you won't really get the Champions League matches until September onwards. So definitely, I would be interested in investing in some sort of Villa attack. Onto Bournemouth. Again, mixed fixtures. There aren't any, like, I'd call easy fixtures in those opening matches. And by the time they play Southampton and Leicester, it's game week 6 and 7. But I'd argue that they aren't necessarily easy fixtures for them as well. Not really infused to buy Dom Solanke based on what we're seeing right there. And then onto Brentford. Again, doesn't really look too great from that perspective. Again, I had Mbeumo in my provisional draft for the season, albeit that was without fixtures, so I might be inclined to remove him now. And then on to Brighton. Got a few green block fixtures, but then just don't know what to expect with Brighton at this moment in time. Of course, rotation was a bit of a nightmare under RDZ, but yeah, I'm not really infused to invest heavily in Brighton players at this moment in time based on what we're seeing there. And then Chelsea, who of course had a mixed 23-24 season. They've got a difficult opening fixture with Man City, but then beyond that, they've got some very reasonable games. So I think getting Palmer from the onset almost seems like a no-nonsense pick. Of course, his price is significantly higher. And then on to Palace, albeit there's no red block or green block games in the initial 3. We've seen the momentum that they've had under the new manager, and I had some Crystal Palace coverage, and I'll probably be inclined to have at least one Crystal Palace player based on what we're seeing there with the fixtures. With Everton, again, had a difficult season, but they survived. Again, not massively enthused with their fixtures, but we'll have a think about it. Again, can't really think of any Everton attackers I'd want. Would I get Pickford? Who knows? And then with Fulham, tricky opening fixture. And then beyond that, they've got a few reasonable fixtures. And then with Ipswich, again, two super difficult games. But then beyond the first two, they've got a good run of like reasonable games. And Leicester, similar to Ipswich, tricky opening fixture, and then it opens up fairly reasonable for them. Of course, with Maresca not being there for them in 24-25, that may have somewhat of an impact on their style of play. Liverpool, who I don't think I had any Liverpool assets in my provisional draft pre-fixtures, seems like a very decent run, arguably one of the best runs for the premium team, so might need to factor that in as well. Again, Man City fixture proof, but seems fairly reasonable with what we're seeing there as well. And with United, our FA Cup champions, seems fairly reasonable as well. And you've got Newcastle United, who won't be playing in any European football because Manchester United won the FA Cup and got access to European football. You'd argue that with focus on the league once again, that opening run, that is also of interest. And then Forest, you can see that 2 out of 3 reasonable opening home games as well. I might have to convince myself to buy some sort of Forest player there as well. And then Southampton, mixed out fixtures. With Spurs, got opening match against Leicester, but then they've got Newcastle and Arsenal within the first 4 as well. West Ham seems fairly mixed, but I can't really justify a West Ham player based on what we're seeing there. And then with Wolves, I'd say it's fairly tricky in the first 8 with Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Man City. I probably want to avoid a Wolves player due to those opening games. Now, what I'll do is I'll go on to the template that is currently the preseason trending template over on FPL.team. So that was their plan I just saw there. So Leno is the popular goalkeeper pick, someone who I already had in my team. Gabriel as a defender. Again, Saliba's the same price, but he's being picked. Then Branthwaite, will he still be at Everton? And then got Guardiola as a starting defender. Palmer, Foden, Saka in the midfield. But then you'd argue with Euro 2024, if England play in the advanced stages of that competition, that how likely is it that any of those players will start in game week 1? So that's something worth factoring in as well, not just for England, but all of the major nations at Euro 2024. And you can see Eze and Mateta. So that not a massive surprise for me that there's 2 Crystal Palace players there. And then Haaland and Isak as well. And again, don't treat this as being like the template. It's just the trending players, and the value will be well over 100 million. And then got Pickford, Saliba, Shah, and Gordon as well. So with all of that said, looking at the trending players and looking at the fixtures as well, let's go back to my team as it is from the provisional that I set, which was actually right at the end of May when the season had just about finished. So based on the information that we've now seen, so you can see my budget is maxed out at 100 million. I'm going to get rid of Mbeumo. So let's just see the options there. So Saka, I'm not going to really justify with Euro 2024 at this moment in time, although I could easily get Saka in if I downgraded Rice, but I'm just trying to avoid having too many England players in my team right now. So just go down. I think that what I'm missing really is a Liverpool player. So if I go to Luis Diaz, and I've got 1 million where I'm over on my budget, I will get rid of Declan Rice just for now. Let's see who the 4.5 million starting midfield options are. Can't really justify any of the ones that I'm looking at here right now. So just having a look if I've got an option for, yeah, I've got expected points if anything comes up. Nope, not for the time being. Let's get it on ownership. Yeah, none of these players really appeal to me in the 4.5 category, but let's just go further down. It's interesting. Let's pick Ahmad Diallo. I don't think he'll be 4.5 million, but let's just pick him for the time being, because one of those players who really wasn't getting any game time until right at the end of the season, and then put in some good performances. I'll be very shocked if he is 4.5, might be 5 million, but yeah, I've got the option to change his transfer price as well. But let's just keep it as it is for the time being. Hermansen in goal. So we know, based on the fixtures that I just showed on the FPL.team planner, that Leicester do have somewhat of a tricky run. But what I'm actually going to do is go for, I think if I'm not mistaken, Nottingham Forest. No, I can't. They've got the easier run. Might try and fit in a Nottingham Forest defender perhaps, but yeah, it'll be somewhat tricky. I want Aston Villa cover, so let's go to Aston Villa. Attacking cover for sure. So select club, Aston Villa. Strikers, got Havertz, Mateta and Haaland. And of course, Haaland with Norway isn't at the Euros, so hopefully he'll be fresh as a fiddle. So if we just sort this by just points for this season. Konsa, would he be 4.5? Got a feeling he might be 5 million, being a Champions League club. So I think I'm going to keep Palmer as well, as I've mentioned. But I've got to clear the decks. Again, Clark and Bree, I'll have to keep them for the time being. But again, let's just bring the fixture planner up again super quickly. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to have an Aston Villa. When would I start an Aston Villa defender against? I wouldn't want to start one until game week 4. It's a bit late. So I do need a budget goalkeeper. I've got Hermansen for the time being, but I also want like a Premier League goalkeeper who was in the Premier League last season as well. I'm just going to go to Newcastle United just to see what the pricing is there, because they're not in not in any European competition. Let's select goalkeepers. Got Dubravka, 4.5 million. Let's just bump the price up a bit. Pope, 5 million. Am I going to justify getting Pope 5 million? If I do that, I'd have to downsize Hermansen as well. And again, Leicester had a healthy number of clean sheets and didn't concede many under the previous manager. Maresco got them promoted. So maybe that is the way. So yeah, let's get rid of Hermansen for now. I'll pick Pope and get rid of Leno. I don't really like 5.0 goalkeepers or anything above. Again, we've talked about like value for money, points per million. You don't really get it the more you spend on a goalkeeper, but I think we can kind of get away with it if we choose a 4.0 second goalkeeper as well. Just curious to see who the popular picks here are. So Turner, 8.6 million. Doubt he's going to start. Not sure, but let's just pick him as a placeholder for now. Switch him out. Put Pope in. So yeah, the bench is quite bare for the time being. Diallo, if he is 4.5, would be quite interesting. Clark, Bree, and Turner. Again, I mentioned that I was missing a Liverpool player, and based on the fixtures that we can see, makes sense to get one in. Sorry, just switch back to my team as well. So that's Pope in goal that you can see there. Let me just do a bit of a zoom in. There we go. So Pope in goal with Saliba, Porro and Gusto. But again, can't really start Gusto in that first game. Budget is maxed out as we speak. Diaz, Bruno, Gordon, Palmer, Mateta, Havertz and Haaland. I actually want to unlock funds, and I do want to get in another Crystal Palace player. So those opening fixtures for Crystal Palace are Brentford away, West Ham at home, and Chelsea away. And they've got Leicester. Can't really justify a Palace defender right now, but I would like an Eze in my team if I can make it work. So again, Manchester United, with their fixtures, I'd say they're fairly reasonable, but again, just not sure what to expect with Ten Hag, who's expected to stay in the hot seat for next season as well. But let's just get rid of Bruno Fernandes. Let's just say because of like Euro commitments, might want to look for some other options. So you've got Odegaard as well as a potential option. Again, I'm thinking of those who aren't in the Euros or aren't expected to be in the later stages. But yeah, let's go for Odegaard. Let's see what happens there. Odegaard, yep, budget is maxed out. Again, logic being Saka, England Euros, just wouldn't want to start with him. So Odegaard seems like an interesting pick. But then again, I've got Havertz as well. And I've got a triple up. Interestingly enough, I wasn't expecting that. I've got an Arsenal triple up, and I've maxed the budget, and I've got Man City cover, and I've got Palmer, and I've got double Newcastle with this draft. So fairly happy with that. But again, Havertz is one I'd probably need to get rid of, again, due to risk of rotation. But yeah, as you can see in this FPL.team planner, very likely to be a forward for next season, just due to the position he's been playing for Arsenal. Watkins has 9 million. Slanky, can't really justify him. Isak, actually. Let's push to Isak. Again, because of the reasonable fixture that Newcastle have. So Arsenal triple up would be viable, but then so would be a Newcastle triple up as well. So Isak, I've pushed 500,000 shortfall. Gusto, just look at his opening fixtures. There you go. And he is projected to be 5 million. So what I'm going to do is get rid of him. And I'm going to look for a £4.5 million defender. So Brantthwaite, again, I mentioned Everton's fixtures aren't massively appealing. Wouldn't want to get him in. Shaw, interestingly, he's 4.5 million. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Again, if he is 4.5, that would be an absolute bargain, and I can get rid of Nick Pope actually. So need to get another goalkeeper. So let's just get Gusto out for now. Get Fabian Shaw in. Too many player selected from Newcastle. Get rid of Nick Pope. The goalkeeper that I'm gonna pick, Anana's 5.5 million. I do really want to push for a 4.5 million goalkeeper. That's something that was a big takeaway for me because I started with Edison. Yeah, I did get a few clean sheets, but then the value really isn't there. I'm just looking at those Forest fixtures. Maybe let's just go to Nottingham Forest. Got Sells. Again, Forest weren't like a bastion of clean sheets last season. The other option really is if I go for Hermansen like I originally intended, which I could do, but again, the risk is I don't want to just lump myself in with a 4.0 and 4.5 Forest goalkeeper, because if they start well, somehow keep clean sheets, it's great. But then if not, then I'm kind of stuck with both, which I'd rather not do. And maybe Hermansen might be the way. But then I'm looking at the fixtures for Fulham. Sorry, just go back on this screen here. That I've got a 4.0 keeper on the bench, and I'm just getting drawn towards Leno. I don't know why. Maybe because I had him in my initial draft and I've seen him in the other trending category as well. So let's just flip this out. Let's get rid of Pope. We can't have him. Let's go to all goalkeepers. Let's get Leno. And that's 500,000 in the bank. Again, I haven't even looked at rotation sequences at this moment in time. Not that I'm a massive fan of them as I used to be back in the day, but Leno is a no-nonsense goalkeeper. But then looking at the home fixtures, the only green block home fixture that Leno has in the first 8 is Leicester in game week 2. Other than that, they seem fairly tricky. So I might need to just circumvent in getting him. Yeah, it's quite difficult. Can't really. Can I get? I think might need to make a case for 2 4.5 goalkeepers. I'm definitely not going to have like a premium goalkeeper. That's for sure. So I just look at Forest fixtures: home to Bournemouth in 1, Wolves in 3. Got Fulham. I don't. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think my gut instinct is saying don't just get one. Like, don't get a 4.5 and 4.0 Forest goalkeeper. I need to really spread it in terms of who I'm going for. But if we pick Leno, then maybe the other goalkeeper I'm going to pick is the Crystal Palace goalkeeper. So Leno's there. Take Turner out. And then go to goalkeepers, Crystal Palace. And then again with Crystal Palace, they've got quite a few handy. Well, it's either between Johnston and Henderson, who had split duties during the 23-24 season. So, if I'm not mistaken, for the goalkeeping duties, Henderson pretty much took over towards the end. So I'll pick Henderson as the other goalkeeper. So I'd even start Henderson actually, as opposed to starting Leno against United at Old Trafford. So switch them out. And let's just look at the budget. Budget's at 0. Odegaard, Diaz, Gordon. Again, Gordon might be a question mark for me, depending on how England do, but I do want to keep him for now. Kind of wish I had some sort of Liverpool defensive cover as well, but I think I'm set on my team. Let's just remind ourselves on those trending players one more time. So Haaland, Isak, Mateta. By, let's say, coincidence, I've got that triple up now. Palmer, And then Foden, Saka, and Eze. Again, I explained my reasons why I wouldn't want to get 3 England midfielders. But I've got Palmer, that makes it 4. Saliba as a starter. And then they've got Leno in goal, and their other goalkeeper is Pickford. And just to remind ourselves, again, Everton, who, to be fair, had a reasonable season considering all the challenges that they had. Would I want a Brantford or a Pickford against Brighton, Tottenham, Aston Villa, Leicester away, Palace at home, Newcastle at home? Not too sure. If I could justify a Everton attacker, I might, but I think I'm fairly set on this team. So let's do my super zoom in. Again, for those that are tuning in, this is all done on fpl.team. Be sure to check out the website, use the planner, and yeah, just have fun whenever you're tinkering with your initial drafts. So here goes. Let me just zoom in. There we go. So this is my, I guess, first official draft for the 24-25 season based on the Premier League fixtures that were released today. I've decided that I'm going to go with Henderson in goal, and then my back line is Saliba, Porro, and Fabian Schär. Again, Schär, will he be 4.5? If he is, that's an absolute bargain. I'd say it's a no-nonsense pick for anyone to get him in. It was a bit like when Trippier was like 5 million, like 2 seasons back, because like ridiculously cheap. So that would be a very interesting one if he is 4.5. But with Newcastle not being in Europe, could potentially happen. So keep an eye out for that. Onto the midfield, Gordon, Odegaard as opposed to Saka, Diaz for some Liverpool cover, and I've got Palmer as well. But again, caveat with Palmer, may not get minutes in that first fixture because of like Euros commitment. So if I was to get like if 2 or 3 potential England players who are expected to play in the later stages, then I might want to have a like viable first sub. And then onto the strikers, Mateta and Haaland, and then managed to accommodate Isak. Again with Havertz, do like him, I do want him, but the worry is that he may not get minutes in the initial game or two if Germany reach the final. But then I've kind of hopefully covered that off by having Odegaard instead, who I think is a really good neutral pick for those who want to get in Saka or a Havertz, but are worried about the Euro post Euros game week 1 X-Mins. So fairly happy with that strike force as well. And then onto the bench, I've got rotating goalkeepers. So Leno, who rotates somewhat with Henderson. Amad Diallo, if he is 4.5 million, which I do question. So that's pretty much any other 4.5 million striker. And then Clark and Bree. So there you have it. That is my draft. Fairly content with that. I think that is an upgrade on how the draft was when I didn't know the fixtures. And I'd say it's fairly balanced, albeit it is lacking depth in the bench. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and I will certainly do more iterations throughout pre-season, and hopefully it'll give you some food for thought. And as always, if you're able to like, share, and subscribe, that will be greatly appreciated.